Well, hello everyone,
and welcome to my shop. Well, all right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to get back on the Chevy and we're going to install that bypass oil filter that originally came on that 216 from way back in 1949. We're going to clean it up, sand it up, paint it up, and then we're going to install it over here on the this 54 235 engine. So stay tuned and let's get to work. Been a little busy with the bypass oil filter. I sanded it down, primed up the canister, and I primed and painted the lid. Now I had some black for the lid. I don't have any yellow. I am going to repaint it yellow. That's what it was originally. Here he is getting the coat of yellow. Finally. Now I need to paint it. Get some smaller washers. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. I mean, I can cut them shorter. That's not a problem. Touch that up. But it's hitting the inner fender, and it may interfere with my throttle range. Fairly clear. Guess I got to do something about the inner fender there. Hello. Yeah, okay. All right, after mucho fine tuning, we've got him in there. If you can, I don't know if you can see, we'll move that vacuum line, but I've got about almost ½ inch clearance on the inner fender well. And the other place where I was having a problem getting clearance was around that throttle rod right here, okay? And I reversed the bolts and I've got it, so just enough, okay? And I use this smaller clamp. Now I've got it at a slant. I had to do that to get the clearance down there, so it's not perfectly square, but that's okay. And I've got enough line to reach both connections, because that's roughly where it was mounted on the 216. So anyway, now we get to where we'll hook the lines up. All right, I don't know if you can see it, but that plug right there that I'm pointing at with my magnet reversed is the return from the bottom of the canister. And by routing my line around, I can clear the exhaust. And right there is where I've got to install the T, right here where I'm pointing here. I've got to install the T and disconnect. That's the gauge line, oil line, pressure line right there. We'll be connecting him to it, and then the other lead of the T will go into the top of the canister here. All right. All right, I was able to break it loose with the vice grips, and I'm being able to turn it with this wrench. This is one of them cases where it would have been a whole lot better if I'd have done this before I put the engine in, but you know how it is. Okay, that's a very valuable plug. I need to keep that so I can plug the 216. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to thread that 90 in. Well, let me see. I got the line, the drain line down there, right there. Yeah, that way I can get around that front. I can get around that front tail exhaust pipe. Okay. Yeah, I got him barely started. That's oil-resistant Teflon tape I've got on it. That should thread right in there. I'm gonna need 2 hands. All right, I don't know if you can tell, but I've got the oil gauge fitting out, and I'm now going to Teflon tape and get this T and this adapter on it for the oil line, oil pressure line. Clean the threads up some. I'm gonna guess every one of these fittings came with the original kit that the dealer installed on the 216 when it was brand spanking new. Right. Now this is this Teflon tape's for oil and gas, so there's no problem with it. Breaking down. Always roll it in the direction that you're going to thread it, so it doesn't thread off. You get any thread in the oil galley or gallery, however you want to. Okay. All right, now we're going to thread him in there. All right, moment of truth. Here we go. I got good oil pressure. It's taking over 30 like it should, like it did. So far, so good. Oh, my vacuum line disconnected. There we go. I was wondering why I was running a little rough. See if I can light it up down here. All right. All right, there down there is the T I installed. Oh, I'm seeing oil pissing out of it. Bad. Yeah. All right, shut them off. Well, it looks like the cinch connector down there on the bottom is stripped it out. Now, I thought it stripped out the top one, so I reversed the cable, and so it stripped it out while I was attempting to tighten him up too. So, I'm either going to have to order another kit, which I don't need the full kit, or see if I can't get a line made up local. I may try that. So anyway, and those pipes are it's too hot to really work around it right now. So anyway, that's where we're at. All right, $20 later, a new line. And this time I've got a flex coupler at one end. So, let's see what happens now. All right, test number 2. How much oil we got? Ooh, it's dropped about a half quart. Now I don't know how much that is. Yeah, he's dropped a quart. Yeah, a little bit more. Right on the line. All right, here we go again. Let's see what happens. Still pegging the gauge at 30, that's good at idle. The little fitting going to the oil pressure gauge is a little loose, that's what I just tightened up. Alright, I know it's pressurized the canister by now. There's a lot more pressure going through that bypass oil filter than what there was on the 216. So I was kind of concerned about this holding and appearance sealing, but it is. And I'm looking down there at that T-fitting now. There's the T-fitting. He's a little wet at the top. I may can put a little bit more tightening on that oil pressure gauge line. But so far, alright, he seems to be doing good. He's good. Down there at the bottom. Now that's low pressure oil that drains back into the sump. This is the high pressure side, basically. So this is where I want to keep an eyeball peeled for now. But so far, we're doing good. Well, all right, well, there she is. One bypass oil filter installed, and you could probably see the fittings down there. Right there's the T fitting, the feed going to the pump, and then there's the feed going to the gauge right there. That T came off, all the brass you see down there came off the 216, okay? And then down here, the return, you've got a 90, and then you've got the line that screws into it. Now that brass, that came off the 216 also. This is the new cable I had made up, and now I wished I would have had them made it a couple inches longer because it's kind of tight. It doesn't flex though, as far as it moves with the engine, so there's no additional flex put on it. And then here's the return line here. You can look at it this way, that this is more low pressure here, and this one's the high pressure here. All right. And that's him, scraped up a little bit. Kind of rigged up bracket, but that's the best I could do. They do make another type of bracket, and I'm going to look for it. See if I can't find one. It's a round one, and it actually comes out this way where you can use your, I think it bolts to the plate bolts underneath the carburetor and comes out this way, where the filter will turn this way, and you can use your original U-clamps that came with the kit. So I'm gonna look for one of them. I've seen them on some on YouTube. But anyway, I'm also going to carry these plugs with me. So when I'm out and about running and I see a sudden loss of oil pressure, and I come out here and I see one of these lines, maybe that old line leaking or this new one where I got it too tight, where I can plug them up. You know what I mean? And then I'll deal with it after that fact. So I'll keep them plugs in my glove box. So the last two modifications that I did to the 216, I have now moved over to the 235. A good argument could be made that I should have done these when I first had the engine rebuilt, when I rebuilt it and had it sitting on the run stand where I could get to everything real easy. But you know, I just had to get it running and get it in. So anyway, well, all right, I've got to admit that took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. Primarily because the dual exhaust and the dual intake, the manifold, I couldn't use the parts that came with the kit originally, so I had to fab up some clamps to bolt to that larger, more square Fenton intake manifold. And getting them old brass fittings to work, to tighten up one again, I guess for the, I don't know how many times. And I stripped two out, so I had to replace the high pressure line, which basically the lines are the same on the end, the high pressure and the low pressure, but I mean there is pressure on the drain line, I guess I ought to call it that. It drains back in the block, but anyway, it did take a lot longer, and that dual exhaust also contributed to where I couldn't hardly get down in there into it. Single exhaust, oh, this would have been a lot easier. Oh, because matter of fact, I put when I got this thing running with the 216 that was in it, the hoses, the original hoses to this bypass oil filter were dry rotted and ripped up. So I had to replace them, and they were a whole lot easier to get around to than working around that dual exhaust down there. So, and the intake manifold being bigger, it sticks out further. It also decreases the workable space. I tried going on from the underneath side, and it ended up being probably as bad as up top. But anyway, so we've got the PCV, we've got that modification done. I still haven't got the better filter input, but that mesh will do for now. And but I am going to replace this filler cap with something with more filtering capability. I'm still looking around at the twin 4-barrel intake air filters setups that came back in the 60s and 70s to see if I can't maybe adapt one of them. If I can adapt one of them, I'll put a sealed fill cap and run a line over and bring it up inside the air cleaner housing to where it'll be sucking in, you know, good clean air. Kind of want this engine to last a little longer than it was originally intended to. And we got the bypass oil filter. You know, I know some people. I guess I know enough people on both sides of whether or not this was a good enough mod to justify installing it. Some old timers that really that knew these machines real good. They didn't think very highly of it. To them, it was just another weak link in a problem that could occur. So they were of the mind change the oil every 2 to 3. I mean, the paperwork says change oil every 2,000 miles. But I'm going to go 3 with this filter. And but they believe that change that oil every 2,000 miles and you'll be good to go for 100,000. Well, that 216 had about 120,000 miles on it, and it was plumb wore out. And it's the rings that were wore out. So if you can keep the crud, keep good oil, clean oil in these engines, and keep the crud from getting down in there in them cylinders, well then you may get more than just 100,000 miles out of one of these engines. And the train of thought with those that think that this is beneficial is that even though it's a bypass oil filter, so the oil does not run through this filter before it lubricates the engine, it tees into the oil gallery, so some of the oil comes over and gets clean while the majority of it goes in and lubricates the engine and does what it's supposed to. But the train of thought on that is eventually all the oil will make its way through this filter and it will clean out what it needs to. Since it's a bypass oil filter, the element is finer and it does a better job of filtering than the modern full flow filters. Since it doesn't have to pass that filtering before it lubes the engine, they can make it more fine and more and able to stop smaller particles. But anyway, so I got him on there. We'll just see how it does. Oh, one other thing, putting this on added nearly a quart of additional oil, because this canister, it holds the oil. It'll hold. So apparently this canister is going to hold approximately 3/4 of a quart to a quart of oil. So that's pretty good in that you're actually getting more oil. You could make the argument that it's sitting out here with the fan blowing air over it, that it could be cooling the oil some too. I don't know. You need a gauge to figure that out. But I think it's beneficial enough to have spent a day installing it. So anyway, so I didn't think I was going to be able to get on this thing here. I've got a lot of honeydews I'm doing around the homestead here, and I have not been able to get out here and work on this very much. But it looks like I've got this one. So I can get this posted tonight. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, you like to see these old trucks and getting worked on and done on the cheap by an old timer, well, give me a like, which is a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. Give me a comment. Good or bad, I'll try to respond to all of them. And so thank you for watching. You have a good one. I'll see you around. See you.